Dhammapada, Sayings of the Buddha, the twin verses. All that we are is the result of what we have thought. It is founded on our thoughts. It is made up of our thoughts. If a man speaks or acts with an evil thought, pain follows him as the wheel follows the foot of the ox that draws the carriage. All that we are is the result of what we have thought. It is founded on our thoughts. It is made up of our thoughts. If a man speaks or acts with a pure thought, happiness follows him, like a shadow that never leaves him. He abused me, he beat me, he defeated me, he robbed me. In those who harbor such thoughts, hatred will never cease. He abused me, he beat me, he defeated me, he robbed me. And those who do not harbor such thoughts, hatred will cease. For hatred does not cease by hatred at any time. Hatred ceases by love. This is an old rule. The world does not know that we must all come to an end here, but those who know it, their quarrels cease at once. He who lives looking for pleasure only, his senses uncontrolled, immoderate in his food, idle and weak, the tempter, Mara, will certainly overthrow him, as the wind throws down a weak tree. He who lives without looking for pleasures, his senses well controlled, moderate in food, faithful and strong, him Mara will certainly not overthrow, any more than the wind throws down a rocky mountain. He who wishes to put on the yellow dress without having cleansed himself from sin, who disregards temperance and truth, is unworthy of the yellow dress. But he who has cleansed himself from sin is well grounded in virtues and regards all temperance and truth, he is indeed worthy of the yellow dress. They who imagine truth in untruth and see untruth in truth never arrive at truth, but follow vain desires. They who know truth in truth and untruth in untruth arrive at truth and follow true desires. As rain breaks through an ill-thatched house, passion will break through an unreflecting mind. As rain does not break through a well-thatched house, passion will not break through a well-reflecting mind. The evildoer mourns in this world. He mourns in the next. He mourns in both. He mourns and suffers when he sees the evil of his own work. The virtuous man delights in this world. He delights in the next. He delights in both. He delights and rejoices when he sees the purity of his own work. The evildoer suffers in this world, and he suffers in the next. He suffers in both. He suffers when he thinks of the evil he has done. He suffers more when going on the evil path. The virtuous man is happy in this world, and he is happy in the next world. He is happy in both. He is happy when he thinks of the good he has done. He is still more happy when going on the good path. The thoughtless man, even if he can recite a large portion of the law, but is not a doer of it, has no share in the priesthood, but he is like a cowherder counting the cows of others. The follower of the law, even if he can recite only a small portion of the law, but having forsaken passion and hatred and foolishness, possesses true knowledge and serenity of mind. He, caring for nothing in this world or that to come, has indeed a share in the priesthood. On earnestness. Earnestness is the path of immortality, nirvana. Thoughtlessness, the path of death. Those who are in earnest do not die. Those who are thoughtless are as if dead already. Those who are advanced in earnestness, having understood this clearly, delight in earnestness and rejoice in the knowledge of the Arrayas, the elect. These wise people, meditative, steady, always possessed of strong power, attain to nirvana, the highest happiness. If an earnest person has roused himself, if he is not forgetful, if his deeds are pure, if he acts with consideration, if he restrains himself and lives according to the law, then his glory will increase. By rousing himself by earnestness, by restraint and control, the wise man may make for himself an island which no flood can overwhelm. Fools follow after vanity, men of evil wisdom. The wise man keeps earnestness as his best jewel. Follow not after vanity, nor after the enjoyment of love and lust. He who is earnest and meditative obtains joy. When the learned man drives away vanity, he, the wise, climbing the terraced heights of wisdom, looks down upon the fools. Serene he looks upon the toiling crowd, as one that stands on a mountain looks down upon them that stand on a plain. Earnest among the thoughtless, awake among the sleepers, the wise man advances like a racer, leaving behind the back. By earnestness did Indra rise to the lordship of the gods. People praise earnestness. Thoughtlessness is always blamed. A mendicant who delights in earnestness, who looks with fear on thoughtlessness, moves about like fire, burning all his fetters, small or large. A mendicant who delights in reflection, who looks with fear on thoughtlessness, cannot fall away. He is close upon nirvana. Thought. As a fletcher makes straight his arrow, a wise man makes straight his trembling and unsteady thought, which is difficult to guard, difficult to hold back. As a fish taken from his watery home and thrown on dry ground, our thought trembles all over in order to escape the dominion of Mara, the tempter. It is good to tame the mind, which is difficult to hold in and flighty, rushing wherever it listeth. A tamed mind brings happiness. Let the wise man guard his thoughts, for they are difficult to perceive, very artful, and they rush wherever they list. Thoughts well guarded bring happiness. Those who bridle their mind, which travels far, moves about alone, is without a body, and hides in the chamber of the heart, will be free from the bounds of Mara, the tempter. If a man's thoughts are unsteady, if he does not know the true law, if his peace of mind is troubled, his knowledge will never be perfect. Before long, alas, this body will lie on the earth, despised, without understanding, like a useless log. Whatever a hater may do to a hater, or an enemy to an enemy, a wrongly directed mind will do us greater mischief. Not a mother, not a father will do so much, nor any other relative. A well-directed mind will do us greater service. Flowers. Who shall overcome this earth, and the world of Yama, and the world of the gods? Who shall find out the plainly shown path of virtue, as a clever man finds out the flower. The disciple will overcome the earth and the world of Yama and the world of the gods. The disciple will find out the plainly shown path of virtue, as a clever man finds out the right flower. He who knows that this body is like froth and has learnt that it is unsubstantial as a mirage will break the flower-pointed arrow of Mara, the tempter, and never see the king of death. Death carries off a man who is gathering flowers and whose mind is distracted, as a flood carries off a sleeping village. Death subdues a man who is gathering flowers before he is satiated in his pleasures. As the bee collects nectar and departs without injuring the flower, or its color, or its scent, so let a sage dwell in his village. Not the perversities of others, not their sins of commission or omission, but his own misdeeds and negligences should a sage take notice of. Like a beautiful flower, full of color, but without scent, are the fine but fruitless words of him who does not act accordingly. But like a beautiful flower full of color and full of scent are the fine and fruitful words of him who acts accordingly. As many kinds of wreaths can be made from a heap of flowers, so many good things may be achieved by a mortal when once he is born. The scent of flowers does not travel against the wind, nor of sandalwood or of mallika flowers, but the odor of good people travels even against the wind. A good man pervades every place. Sandalwood or tagara, a lotus flower, are among these sorts of perfumes. The perfume of virtue is unsurpassed. Mean is the scent that comes from tagara and sandalwood. The perfume of those who possess virtue rise up to the gods as the highest. Of the people who possess these virtues, who live without thoughtlessness, and who are emancipated through true knowledge, Mara, the tempter, never finds the way. As on a heap of rubbish cast upon the highway, the lily will grow full of sweet perfume and delight. Thus the disciple of the truly enlightened Buddha shines forth by his knowledge among those who are like rubbish, among the people that walk in darkness. The Fool. Long is the night to him who is awake, long is a mile to him who is tired, long is life to the foolish who do not know the true law. If a traveler does not meet with one who is his better or his equal, let him firmly keep to his solitary journey. There is no companionship with a fool. These sons belong to me, and this wealth belongs to me. With such thoughts a fool is tormented. He himself does not belong to himself. How much less sons and wealth? The fool who knows his foolishness is wise at least so far. But a fool who thinks himself wise, he is called a fool indeed. If a fool be associated with a wise man even all his life, he will perceive the truth as little as a spoon perceives the taste of soup. If an intelligent man be associated for 1 minute only with a wise man, he will soon perceive the truth, as the tongue perceives the taste of soup. Fools of little understanding have themselves for their greatest enemies, for they do evil deeds which must bear bitter fruits. That deed is not well done of which a man must repent, and the reward of which he receives crying and with a tearful face. No, that deed is well done of which a man does not repent, and the reward of which he receives gladly and cheerfully. As long as the evil deed done does not bear fruit, The fool thinks it is like honey, but when it ripens, then the fool suffers grief. Let a fool month after month eat his food like an ascetic, with the tip of a blade of kusa grass, yet he is not worth the 16th particle of those who have well weighed the law. An evil deed, like newly drawn milk, does not turn suddenly smoldering like fire covered by ashes. It follows the fool. And when the evil deed, after it has become known, brings sorrow to the fool, then it destroys his bright lot. Nay, it cleaves his head. Let the fool wish for false reputation, for precedence, for lordship, for worship among other people. May both the layman and he who has left the world think that this is done by me. May they be subject to me in everything which is to be done or is not to be done. Thus is the mind of the fool, and his desire and pride increase. One is the road that leads to wealth, another the road that leads to nirvana. If the Bhikshu, the disciple of Buddha, has learnt this, he will not yearn for honor. He will strive after separation from this world. The wise man, Pandita. If you see an intelligent man who tells you where true treasures are to be found, who shows what is to be avoided, and administers reproofs, follow that wise man. It will be better, not worse, for those who follow him. Let him admonish, let him teach, let him forbid what is improper. He will be beloved by the good, by the bad he will be hated. Do not let evildoers be friends. Do not have low people for friends. Have virtuous people for friends. Have for friends the best of people. He who drinks in the law lives happily with a serene mind. The sage rejoices always in the law, as preached by the elect. Well makers lead the water, fetchers bend the arrow, carpenters bend a log. Wise people fashion themselves. As a solid rock is not shaken by the wind, wise people falter not amongst blame and praise. Wise people, after they have listened to the laws, become serene, deep, smooth, like a still lake. Good people walk on whatever befall. The good do not prattle, long for pleasure. Whether touched by happiness or sorrow, wise people never appear elated or depressed. If whether for his own sake or for the sake of others, a man wishes neither for a son, nor for wealth, nor for lordship, and if he does not wish for his own success by unfair means, then he is good, wise, and virtuous. Few are there among men who arrive at the other shore, becoming arhats. The other people here run up and down the shore. But those who, when the law has been well preached to them, follow the law, will pass across the dominion of death, however difficult to overcome. A wise man should leave the dark state of ordinary life and follow the bright state. After going from his home to a homeless state, he should in his retirement look for enjoyment where there seemed to be no enjoyment, leaving all pleasure behind and calling nothing his own. The wise man should purge himself from all troubles of the mind. Those whose mind is well grounded in the 7 elements of knowledge, without clinging to anything, rejoice in freedom from attachment, whose appetites have been conquered, and who are full of the light, are free even in this world. The Venerable Arhat. There is no suffering for him who has finished his journey and abandoned grief, who has freed himself on all sides and thrown off all fetters. They depart with their thoughts well collected. They are not happy in their abode. Like swans who have left their lake, they leave their house and home. Men who have no riches, who live on recognized food, who have perceived void and unconditioned freedom, nirvana, their path is difficult to understand, like that of the birds in the air. He whose appetites are stilled, who is not absorbed in enjoyment, who has perceived void and unconditioned freedom, his path is difficult to understand. The gods envy him whose senses, like horses well broken by the driver, have been subdued, who is free from pride, free from appetites. Such a one who does his duty is tolerant like the earth, like Indra's bolt. He is like a lake without mud. No new births are in store for him. His thought is quiet. Quiet are his word and deed. When he has obtained freedom by true knowledge, when he has thus become a quiet man. The man who is free from credulity, but knows the uncreated, who has cut all ties, removed all temptations, renounced all desires, he is the greatest of men. In a hamlet or a forest, in the deep water or on the dry land, wherever venerable persons dwell, that place is delightful. Forests are delightful, where the world finds no delight. There the passionless will find delight, for they look not for pleasure. The thousands. Even though a speech be 1,000 words, but be made up of senseless words, one word of sense is better, which, if a man hears, he then becomes quiet. Even though a poem, gatha, be 1,000 words, but made up of senseless words, one word of a gatha is better, which, if a man hears, he becomes quiet. Though a man recite 100 gathas, made up of senseless words, one word of the law is better, which, if heard, he becomes quiet. If one man conquers in battle 1,000 times 1,000 men, and if another conquers himself, he is the greatest of conquerors. One's own self-conquering is better than all other people, not even a god. Not Mara with Brahman could change into defeat the victory of a man who has vanquished himself and always lives under restraint. If a man for 100 years sacrifice month after month with 1,000, and if he but for one moment pay homage to a man whose soul is grounded in true knowledge, better is that homage than sacrifice for hundreds of years. If a man for hundreds years worship Agni, fire in the forest, and if he but for one moment pays homage to a man whose soul is grounded in the true knowledge, better is that homage than sacrifice for hundreds years. Whatever a man sacrifice in this world as an offering or as an oblation for a whole year in order to gain merit, the whole of it is not worth a quarter. Reverence shown to the righteous is better. He who always greets and constantly reveres the aged, 4 things will increase to him: life, beauty, happiness, and power. But he who lives 100 years, vicious and unrestrained, a life of one day is better if a man is virtuous and reflecting. And He who lives 100 years, ignorant, unrestrained. A life of one day is better if a man is wise and reflecting. And if he lives for 100 years, idle and weak, a life of one day is better if the man has attained strength. And he who lives 100 years, not seeing beginning and end, a life of one day is better if the man sees the beginning and the end. And he who lives 100 years, not seeing the immortal place, a life of one day is better if a man sees the immortal place. And he who lives 100 years, not seeing the highest law, a life of one day is better if a man sees the highest law. Evil. If a man would hasten towards the good, he should keep his thought away from evil. If a man does what is good slothfully, his mind delights in evil. If a man commits a sin, let him not do it again. Let him not delight in sin. Pain is the outcome of evil. If a man does what is good, let him do it again. Let him delight in it. Happiness is the outcome of good. Even an evildoer sees happiness as long as his evil deed has not ripened. But when his evil deed has ripened, then does the evildoer see evil. Even a good man sees evil days, as long as his good deed has not ripened. But when his good deed has ripened, then does the good man see happy days. Let no man think lightly of evil, saying in his heart, "It will not come nigh unto me." Even by the falling of water drops, a water pot is filled. The fool becomes full of evil, even if he gathers it little by little. Let no man think lightly of good, saying in his heart, "It will not come nigh unto me." Even by the falling of water drops, a water is filled. The wise man becomes full of good, even if he gathers good little by little. Let a man avoid evil deeds as a merchant, if he has few companions and carries much wealth. Avoid a dangerous road, as a man loves life avoids poison. He who has no wound on his head may touch poison with his hand. Poison does not affect one who has no wounds, nor is there evil for one who has not committed evil. If a man offend a harmless, pure, innocent person, the evil falls back upon that fool, like light dust thrown against the wind. Some people are born again. Evildoers go to hell. Righteous people go to heaven. Those who are free from all worldly desire attain nirvana. Not in the sky, not in the sea, not if we enter into the clefts of the mountains, is there known a spot in the whole world where death cannot overcome the mortal. Punishment. All men tremble at punishment. All men fear death. Remember that you are unto them, and do not kill nor cause slaughter. All men tremble at punishment. All men love life. Remember that thou art like unto them, and do not kill nor cause slaughter. He who, seeking his own happiness, does not punish or kill beings who also long for happiness, will find happiness after death. Do not speak harshly to anybody. Those who are spoken to will answer thee in the same way. Angry speech is painful. Blows for blows will touch thee. If, like a shattered metal plate, a gong, thou utter not, then thou hast reached nirvana. Contention is not known to thee. As a cow herder with his staff drives his cow to the stable, so do age and death drive the life of a man. He will have cruel suffering that inflicts pain on innocent and harmless persons, injury of the body, heavily affliction, or loss of mind, misfortune coming from the king, or fearful accusations, or loss of relations, or destruction of treasure, or lightning fire will burn his house. And when his body is destroyed, the fool will then go to hell. Not nakedness, not plaited hair, not dirt, not fasting or lying on the ground, not rabbing with dust, not sitting motionless, can purify a mortal who has not overcome desire. He who, dressed in fine apparel, exercising tranquility, is quiet, subdued, restrained, chaste, and has ceased to find fault with other beings, is indeed a Brahmin, an ascetic, a friar. Is there in this world any man so restrained by humility that he does not mind reproof, as a well-trained horse the whip? Like a well-trained horse when touched by the whip, be ye active and lively, and by faith, by virtue, by energy, by meditation, by discernment of the law, you will overcome great pain, the pain of reproof, perfect in knowledge and in behavior, and never forgetful. Well makers lead the water, fletchers bend the arrow, carpenters bend a log of wood, good people fashion themselves. Old age. How is their laughter? How is their joy? As this world is always burning, why do you not seek a light, ye who are surrounded by darkness? Look at this dressed up lump, covered with wounds, joined together, sickly, full of many thoughts, which has no strength, no hold. This body is wasted, full of sickness and frail. A heap of corruption breaks to pieces. Life, indeed, ends in death. White bones like gourds thrown away in the autumn. What pleasure is there in looking at them? After a stronghold has been made of bone, it is covered with flesh and blood, and there dwells in it age, death, pride, deceit. The brilliant chariots of kings are destroyed. The body also approaches destruction, but the virtue of good people never approaches destruction. Thus do the good say to good. A man who has learnt little grows old like an ox. His flesh grows, but his knowledge does not grow. Looking for the maker of the tabernacle, I shall have to run through a course of many births, so long as I do not find him, and painful is birth again and again. But now, maker of the tabernacle, thou hast been seen. Thou shalt not make up this tabernacle again. All thy rafters are broken, thy ridgepole is sundered. The mind approaching the eternal, nirvana, has attained to the extinction of all desire. Men who have not observed proper discipline and have not gained treasure in youth perish like old herons in a lake without fish. Men who have not observed discipline, who have not gained treasure in youth, lie like broken bows, sighing after the past. The self. If a man holds himself dear, let him watch carefully. During one at least out of 3 watches, a wise man should be watchful of himself. Let each man direct himself first to what is proper. Then let him teach others. Thus a wise man will not suffer. If a man make himself as he teaches others to be, then being himself well subdued, he may subdue others. One's own self is indeed difficult to subdue. Self is the lord of self. Who else could be the lord? With self well subdued, a man finds a lord, such as few can find. The evil done by oneself, self-begotten, self-bred, crushes the foolish, as a diamond crushes precious stone. He whose wickedness is very great brings himself down to that state where his enemy wishes him to be, as a creeper does with the tree which it surrounds. Bad deeds, deeds hurtful to others, are easy to do. What is beneficial and good is often very difficult. The foolish man who scorns the world, of the venerable, of the elect, of virtuous, who follows false doctrines. He bears fruit to his own destruction, like the fruits of the Kathaka reed. By oneself the evil is done. By oneself one suffers. By oneself evil is left undone. By oneself one is purified. Purity and impurity belong to oneself. No one can purify another. Let no one forget his own duty for the sake of another, however great. Let a man, after he has discerned his own duty, be always attentive to his duty. The world. Do not follow the evil law. Do not live on thoughtlessness. Do not follow false doctrine. Be not a friend to this world. Rouse thyself. Do not be idle. Follow the law of virtue. The virtuous rests in bliss. Follow the law of virtue. Do not follow the law of sin. The virtuous rests in bliss in this world and in the next. Look upon the world as a bubble. Look upon it as a mirage. The king of death does not see him who thus looks down on the world. Come, look at this glittering world, like unto a royal chariot. The foolish are immersed in it, but the wise do not touch it. He who formerly was reckless and afterwards becomes sober brightens up this world, like the moon when freed from clouds. This world is dark. Few only can see here. A few only go to heaven, like birds escaping from the net. The swans go on the path of the sun. They go through the ether by means of their miraculous power. The wise are led out of this world when they have conquered Mara and his train. If a man has transgressed the law and speaks lies and scoffs at another world, there is no evil he will not do. The uncharitable do not go to the world of the gods. Fools only do not praise liberality. A wise man rejoices in liberality, and through it becomes blessed in the other world. Better than sovereignty over the earth, better than going to heaven, better than the lordship over all the worlds, is the reward of the first step in holiness. The Buddha, the awakened. He whose conquest is not conquered again, into whose conquest no one in this world enters. By what track can you lead him, the awakened, the omniscient, the trackless? He whom no desire with its snares and poisons can lead astray. By what track can you lead him, the awakened, the omniscient, the trackless? Not to commit any sin, to do good, and to purify one's mind. That is the teaching of the awakened. The awakened call patience the highest of penance, long-suffering the highest nirvana. For he is not an anchorite who strikes others. He is not an ascetic who insults others. Do not strike. To live restrained under the law. Be moderate in eating. To sleep and sit alone. To dwell on the highest thoughts. This is the teaching of the awakened. There is no satisfying lusts, even by a shower of gold pieces. He who knows that lusts have a short taste and cause pain, he is wise. Even in heavenly pleasures, he will find no satisfaction. The disciple who is fully awakened delights only in the destruction of desire. Men driven by fear go to many a refuge, to mountains and forests, to groves and sacred trees. But that is not a safe refuge. That is not the best refuge. A man is not delivered from all pains after having gone to refuge. But he who takes refuge with Buddha, the law, and church. He who, with clear understanding, sees the four holy truths. Pain, the origin of pain, the destruction of pain, and the eightfold holy way that leads to the quieting of pain. That is the safe refuge. That is the best refuge. That is where a man is delivered from all pain. A supernatural person, a Buddha, is not easily found. He is not born everywhere. Wherever such a sage is born, that race will prosper. Happy is the arising of the awakened. Happy is the teaching of the true law. Happy is peace in the church. Happy is the devotion of those who are at peace. He who pays homage to those who deserve homage, whether they are awakened Buddha or disciples of the Buddha, those who have overcome evils and crossed the flood of sorrow, he who pays homage to such as have found deliverance and know no fear, his merit can never be measured by anybody. Happiness. Let us live happily then, not hating those who hate us. Among men who hate, let us dwell free from hatred. Let us live happily then, free from ailments among the ailing. Among men who are ailing, let us dwell free from ailments. Let us live happily then, free from greed from the greedy. Among men who are greedy, let us dwell free from greed. Let us live happily then, though we call nothing our own. We shall be like the bright gods feeding on happiness. Victory breeds hatred, for the conquered is unhappy. He who has given up both victory and defeat, he is happy. There is no fire like passion. There is no losing throw like hatred. There is no pain like body. There is no happiness higher than rest. He who has tasted the sweetness of solitude and tranquility is free from fear, free from sin, while he tastes the sweetness of drinking the law. The sight of the elect Arya is good. To live with them is always happiness. If a man does not see fools, he will be truly happy. He who walks in the company of fools will suffer. A company with fools, as with an enemy, is always painful. Company with a wise man is pleasurable, like meeting with kinsfolk. Therefore, one ought to follow the wise, intelligent, learned, enduring, dutiful, the elect. One ought to follow a good and wise man as the moon follows the path of the stars. Pleasure. He who gives himself to vanity and does not give himself to meditation, forgetting the actual aim of life and grasping at pleasure, will in time envy him who has exerted himself in meditation. Let no man ever look for what is pleasant or what is unpleasant. Not to see what is pleasant is pain, and it is pain to see what is unpleasant. Let therefore no man love anything. Loss of the beloved is evil. Those who love nothing and hate nothing have no fetters. From pleasure comes grief, from pleasure comes fear. He who is free from pleasure knows neither grief nor fear. From affection comes grief, from affection comes fear. He who is free from affection knows neither grief nor fear. From lust comes grief, from lust comes fear. He who is free from lust knows neither grief nor fear. From love comes grief, from love comes fear. He who is free from love knows neither grief nor fear. From greed comes grief, from greed comes fear. He who is free from greed knows neither grief nor fear. He who possesses virtue and intelligence, who is just, who speaks the truth, who does what is only his own business, him the world will hold dear. He in him a desire for the ineffable nirvana has sprung up, who is satisfied in his mind, and whose thoughts are not bewildered by love. He is called as one carried upwards by the stream. Kinsmen, friends, and lovers, salute a man who has been long gone and returns safe from afar. In like manner, his good works receive him who has done good and has gone from this world to the other, as kinsmen receive a friend. Anger. Let a man leave anger, let him forsake pride, let him overcome this bondage. No sufferings befall the man who is not attached to name and form. and who calls nothing his own. He who holds back rising anger like a rolling chariot, him I call a driver. Other people are, but are not holding the reins. Let a man overcome anger by love. Let him overcome evil by good. Let him overcome greed by liberality. The liar by truth. Speak truth. Do not yield to anger. Give, if thou art asked even for a little. By these 3 steps thou wilt go near the gods. The sage who injures nobody and who always controls their body, they will go to nirvana, where, if they have gone, they will then suffer no more. Those who are ever watchful, who study day and night, and who strive after nirvana, their passions will come to an end. This is an old saying, O Atula, this is not only of today. They blame him who sits silent. They blame him who speaks much. They also blame him who says little. There is no one on earth who is not blamed. Beware of bodily anger. Control thy body. Leave the sins of the body, and with thy body practice virtue. Beware of the anger even of the tongue. Control thy tongue. Leave the sins of the tongue, and practice virtue with thy tongue. Beware of the anger of the mind. Control thy mind. Leave the sins of the mind, and practice virtue with thy mind. The wise who control their body, control their tongue. The wise who can control mind are indeed well controlled. Impurity. If thou art now like a seared leaf, the messengers of death, Yama, have come near to thee. Thou standest at the door of thy departure, and thou hast no provision for the journey. Make thyself an island, work hard, be wise. When thy impurities are blown away, and thou art free from guilt, thou wilt enter the heavenly world of the elect. Thy life has come to an end. Thou art come near to death. Yama, there is no resting place for thee on the road, and thou hast no provision for thy journey. Make thyself an island, work hard, be wise. When thy impurities are blown away, and thou art free from guilt, thou wilt not enter again into birth and decay. Let a wise man blow off the impurities of his self, as a smith blows off the impurities of silver, one by one, little by little, and from time to time. As the impurity which springs from the iron, when it springs from it, destroys it, thus do a transgressor's own works lead him to evil path. The taint of prayers is non-repetition. The taint of house, non-repair. The taint of the body is sloth. The taint of a watchman, thoughtlessness. Bad conduct is the taint of woman. Greediness, the taint of a benefactor. Tainted are the evil ways in this world. But there is a taint worse than all taints. Ignorance is the greatest of all taints. O mendicants, throw off that taint and become taintless. Life is easy to live for a man who is without shame. A crow, a hero, a mischief maker, an insulting, bold, and wretched fellow. But life is hard to live for a modest man who always looks for what is pure, who is disinterested, quiet, intelligent. He who destroys life, who speaks untruth, who in this world takes what is not given him, who goes to another man's wife, and the man who gives himself to drinking intoxicating liquors, he even in this world digs up his own roots. O man, know this, that the unrestrained are in bad state. Take care that greediness and vice do not bring thee to grief. If a man looks after the fault of others and is always inclined to be offended, his own passions will grow, and he is far from the destruction of passion. There is no path through the air. A man is not a samana by outward acts. The world delights in vanity. The Buddhists are free from vanity. There is no path through the air. A man is not a samana by outward acts. No creatures are eternal, but the awakened Buddha are never shaken. The just. A man is not just if he carries a matter by violence. No, he who distinguishes both right and wrong, who is learned and leads others not by violence but by law and equity, and who is guarded by the law and intelligent, he is just. A man is not learned because he talks much. He who is patient, free from hatred and fear, he is called learned. A man is not an elder because he has a head of gray. His age may ripe, but he is called old in vain. He in whom there is virtue, love, restraint, moderation, he who is free from impurity and is wise, he is an elder. A man is not elect because he injures living creatures, because he has pity on living creatures. Therefore is a man called Ariah, not only by discipline and vows, not only by much learning, not by entering into trance, not by sleeping alone, do I earn the happiness of release, which no worldling can know. Bhikkhu, be not confident, as long as thou hast not attained the extinction of desire. The way. The best of ways is the eightfold, the best of truths, the four worlds, the best of virtues, passionlessness, the best of men, he who has eyes to see. This is the way. There is no other way that leads to the purifying of intelligence. Go this way. Everything else is the deceit of the tempter, Mara. If you go on this way, you will make an end of pain. You yourself must make an effort. The Tathagatas, the Buddhas, are only preachers. The thoughtful who enter the way are freed from the bondage of Mara. All created things perish. He who knows and sees this becomes passive in pain. This is the way to purity. Through zeal, knowledge is gotten. Through lack of zeal, knowledge is lost. Let a man who knows this double path of gain and loss thus place himself in the path of knowledge, so that he may grow. Cut down the whole forest of lust, not a tree. Danger comes out of the forest of lust. When thou hast cut down both the forest of lust and its undergrowth, then, Bhikkshus, you will be rid of the forest and then free. So long as love of man towards women, even the smallest, is not destroyed, so long as his mind is in bondage, as the calf that drinks milk is to its mother. Cut out the love of self, like the autumn lotus, with thy hand. Cherish the road of peace. Nirvana has been shown to the Buddha. Here I shall dwell in the rain, here in winter, here in summer. Thus is the thoughts of the fool's meditation. He does not think of his death. Death comes and carries off that man, praised for his children and flock. His mind is constantly distracted, as a flood carrying the sleeping village. Sons are of no help, nor is a father, nor other relations. There is no help from kinsfolk for one whom death has been seized. A wise and good man knows the meaning of this. He should quickly clear the way to the path leading to nirvana. Miscellaneous. If by leaving a small pleasure one sees a great pleasure, let a man leave the path of small pleasure and look to the great. He who by causing pain to others wishes to obtain pleasure for himself, he entangled in the bonds of hatred will never be free from hatred. A true Brahmana goes scatheless, though he have killed father and mother and two valiant kings, though he has destroyed a kingdom with all subjects. A true Brahman goes scatheless, though he killed father and mother and holy kings and eminent men even besides. The disciples of Buddha are always well awake, and their thoughts of day and night are always set on the Buddha. The disciples of Buddha are always well awake, and their thoughts day and night are on the law. The thoughts of the Buddha are always well awake, their thoughts day and night on church. It is hard to leave the world, to become a friar. It is hard to enjoy the world. Hard is the monastery. Painful are the houses. Painful is it to dwell with equals, to share everything in common. And the itinerant mendicant is beset with pain. Therefore, let no man be mendicant, and he will not be beset with pain. Whoever places a faithful, virtuous, celebrated, and wealthy man chooses where he is respected. The downward course. He who says what is not goes to hell. He also who, having done a thing, says, I have not done it, after death both are equal. They are men with evil deeds in the next world. There is bad reputation and the evil way to hell. There is the short pleasure of the frightened in the arms of the frightened, and the king imposes heavy punishment. Therefore, let no man think of his neighbor's wife. As a grass blade, if it is badly grasped, will cut the arm. Badly practiced asceticism will lead to hell. If anything is to be done, let a man do it. Let him attack it with vigor. A careless pilgrim only scatters the dust of his passions more widely. An evil deed is better left undone, for a man repents of it afterwards. A good deed is better done, for having done it, one does not repent. They who fear when they ought not fear, and fear not what they ought to fear, such men embrace false doctrines. They are on the evil path. They who forbid when there is nothing to be forbidden, and forbid not when there is something that should be forbidden, such men embrace false doctrines and are on the evil path. They who know what is forbidden as forbidden, and what is not forbidden as not forbidden, such men embrace the true doctrine. They enter the good path. The elephant. Silently shall I endure abuse, as the elephant in battle endures the arrow sent from the bow. For the world is ill-natured. They lead a tamed elephant to battle. The king mounts the elephant. The tamed is the best among men, he who silently endures abuse. Mules are good if tamed, and noble horses, and elephants with large tusks. But a man who tames himself is better than all of these. For with these animals does no man reach the untrodden country of nirvana, where a tamed man goes on a tamed animal, on his own well-tamed self. It is better to live alone. There is no companionship with a fool. Let a man walk alone, let him commit no sin. With few wishes he shalt be like an elephant in the forest. Pleasant is the world in the state of a mother, pleasant the state of a father, pleasant is the state of Samana, pleasant is the state of a Brahmana, pleasant is the virtue lasting to old age, pleasant is a faith firmly rooted, pleasant is the attainment of intelligence, pleasant is it to avoid sin. Thirst. The thirst of a thoughtless man grows like a creeper. He runs from life to life, like a monkey seeking fruit in the forest. Whomsoever this thirst overcomes, full of poison in this world, his suffering increases like the abounding grass. He who overcomes this fierce thirst, difficult to be conquered in this world, sufferings fall upon him like water drops on the lotus leaf. The gift of the law exceeds all gifts. The sweetness of the law exceeds all sweetness. The delight of the law exceeds all delights. The extinction of thirst will overcome all pain. The fields are damaged by weeds. Mankind is damaged by passion. Therefore, a gift is bestowed on the passionless. It shall bring great reward. The mendicant. Restraint in the eye is good. Good is restraint in the ear, and the nose restraint is good. Good is restraint in the tongue. And this is the beginning here for a wise man. Watchfulness over the senses, contentedness, restraint under the law. Keep noble friends who live pure lives and who are not slothful. He who, even as a young Bhikkhu, applies himself to the doctrine of Buddha will brighten up the world just as the moon brightens the clouds. The Arhat. Stop the stream valiantly. Drive away, O desires. When you have understood the destruction of all that has been made, you will understand that which was not made. He who is thoughtless, blameless, settled, dutiful, and without passions, and who has attained the highest end, him I call a Brahmin. The sun is bright by day, the moon shines by night. The warrior is bright in armor, the Brahmana is bright in meditation. But Buddha, the awakened, is bright with splendor day and night. No one should attack a Brahman, but no Brahmana, if attacked, should let himself fly at his aggressor. Woe to him who strikes. More woe to him who flies at his aggressor. It advantages a Brahmana not a little if he holds his mind back from the pleasures of life. When all wish to injure has vanished, pain will cease. A man does not become a Brahmana by his plaited hair, by his family, or by his birth. In him there is truth and righteousness. He is blessed. What is the use of plaited hair? O fool, what of the raiment of goat skin? Within thee there is ravening, but the outside there makest thou clean. The man who wears dirty raiments, who is emaciated and covered in veins, who lives alone in the forest and meditates, him I call a Brahmana. Him I call indeed a Brahmana, who does not cling to pleasure like water on a lotus leaf, like a mustard seed on the point of a needle. Him I call indeed a Brahmana, who has left what gives pleasure and what gives pain, who is cold and free from all germs, the hero who has conquered the worlds. Him I call indeed a Brahmana, who knows his former abodes, who sees heaven and hell, has reached the ends of birth, is perfect in knowledge, a sage, and whose perfections are all perfect.